So here we are, Wanda. Thank you so much for inviting me into your apartment to have this conversation.
I'm glad to be having this conversation with you, Martin.
I really do appreciate it. So I wanted to find out from you, Wanda, what it's like coming to the Cannes Film Festival as a business executive. What does this place mean to you, and what do you hope to achieve here?
So coming here has been actually a wonderful experience. This is my first time coming to Cannes as a producer.
Mm-hmm.
And it has been a wonderful experience to connect with people that are in the industry, to learn a lot because I'm newer to this space. So to learn a lot about the industry and about producing films. And really my main purpose here was to advance a documentary that I'm working on. And I have gotten some just tremendous feedback on that documentary. So I'm very excited about that project.
Well, tell me a little bit about the documentary then.
So I'm working with my son, who's my business partner and a film student at Loyola Marymount University, as well as with Maria Secor Productions, to create a documentary about my mother, who was a civil rights activist in the U.S. during the 1960s. And she has a very unique story and very unique artifacts. And unfortunately, I think this story is just as important today as it was 60 years ago in the 60s. But my mother was a civil rights activist, and she had a very light complexion. So she was the person that they would often send in to sit at the lunch counters during the lunch counter sit-ins. And the people that owned the lunch counters couldn't really detect whether she was a black person or a white person, so she would be able to order food. Once she ordered that food, she would signal for the male black students to come in, push the food down to them. They would begin to eat. And as you can imagine, Martin, chaos ensued.
Yes.
And she was arrested many, many times during the civil rights movement. And during one of her jail stays, she decided to write her story on a roll of jailhouse toilet paper. And so it's just a very unique artifact. And she describes why she's doing what she's doing. And the part that means the most to me is when she actually writes to her mother. And she says, "Mommy, I know you told me not to get in jail, but I don't mind being in jail as long as I know that one day when I have children of my own, they will have privilege and can do the things we're fighting for today." So it's just a very unique piece, and we still have this roll of toilet paper, believe it or not.
Yes.
It is still intact.
I'm really interested. I'd love to see it.
I will show you a picture of it.
Yeah, this sounds like a historical document.
It really is. It really is. And so we've been in contact with several museums, and I think that it will land in a museum one day. But we're really, really excited about creating this documentary, sort of about the everyday hero of the civil rights movement. Everyone knows the big names, but it really was the students that lifted the movement and pushed it forward. You know, of course, there were leaders like Dr. Martin Luther King, you know, and all the big names that everyone knows. But it really was this swell of students that really moved it forward.
Yes, and that is also a really powerful message to share today. That there is power within the individual.
Absolutely.
We're living in a time where things are going a little bit backwards, which is very scary and not good at all. And so we need to be making positive differences as an individual. We need to be shaking things up on the ground. And I guess telling a story like this gives us a moment for inspiration.
Yes.
To hear who's come before.
And that is exactly what we're hoping for, to share her story so that it motivates others to get involved in the ways that they can.
Yes, and this must be hugely personal for you.
Of course it is.
You know, and so that can be tough, no?
Yeah.
That can be difficult. How do you pursue the storytelling when it is this personal, when it's not just a topic that means a lot to you, but it's your family, it's your mother?
Yeah, it's every once in a while I have to step away because it does get a little emotional for me. But I think my mother, we lost my mother in 2023, but we captured her story in her voice before she passed away. And so I just think it's just so powerful. And she knew that we were doing this. She knew that we were starting to work on this. And I just want to do her justice, So sometimes I do have to step away and sort of catch my breath a minute and control the emotions a bit. But her story is so powerful, and she, I watched her fight for justice and equality my entire life, like my entire life, whether it was, of course, hearing her stories about when she was a college student in a small, historically Black college in Sumter, South Carolina, Morris College, to seeing her fight for justice for me when things would happen in school settings or something like that, and she'd be like, yeah, no, we're not gonna have that, and so
that's a real powerful woman.
She absolutely was. Yeah, she absolutely was. So I hope we can do, and I know that we will do her story justice, and I really do hope that it inspires and motivates others to understand the power that we all have as individuals, and especially the younger generation coming up, to understand that, when we fought for rights in the 1960s, it was the students that pushed society forward.
Yeah, I'm seeing a lot of hopelessness out in the world right now for the younger generation. So this story sounds to me more important than ever that it's shared. So I wonder, when you was recording with your mother and you was capturing her story, was there anything there that you didn't expect to find?
There were lots of things, that we learned as we were capturing her story in her voice. And there were times I'd be like, Mom, I never heard that before. What? So she told me a story one time about when a college student again, and she had borrowed someone's car, and she was driving down some, back road in this car, and the Ku Klux Klan saw her, and they started to chase her. And she had to go and hide the car in the woods and, kind of hide from them a little bit. And of course she escaped because she was still here. But, I never heard that story before, And so there were all of these little, not little, really big, impactful stories that she had that we're hoping to pull into the documentary as well. Yeah.
And so in making this documentary, how has it changed you?
Oh, that's a great question, Martin. I think it has helped me to understand how I became who I am, right? Because I am a direct descendant of Tilly, who was my mother, and all of the things that she did and that I observed her do over my lifetime really led me into the career that I had. I'm recently early retired corporate executive that had big roles, and I worked for Johnson & Johnson globally, and I had big roles in global marketing and sales and analytics and market research and all of these things. I managed P&Ls of $1 billion and just all of these really big businesses. But the last role that I had was, I think, really sort of the culmination of all of the teaching of my mother. So the role that I had when I retired was I was the Chief Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion Officer for Johnson & Johnson globally. And so I had the opportunity to really drive justice and equality in my own way through my own job and career, and really had an impact not only on Johnson & Johnson, but had an impact on the patients that we served around the world in many different ways. So, and it's really quite wonderful to sort of look back and to see my work preserved in such a way at Johnson & Johnson. Like the work that my team and I did literally is carved in marble in the front of the world headquarters of Johnson & Johnson. So
you've made a real impact there, and I guess you're hoping to make a similar impact in the world of filmmaking.
I hope so. I hope so.
So the work that you did at Johnson & Johnson, then, what are you taking from there that you will drive you forward into the world of film?
All of it. All of it. And so, I have been a business person all my life, right? Marketing, sales, I just said all the things, right? And what I'm finding as I step into this new space for me is that my skills are very transferable to the film world, right? Because there is the creative side, but there's also a very big business side. And so now I'm sort of learning how to take the skills that I've learned and the expertise that I've had all of my career and sort of transfer that into a new role. And I think that there are some things that will be very beneficial to the industry. You know, like when I think about creatives, they're creatives. They're not necessarily business people, right?
No. And that's, I'm a creative, and that's often been one of my flaws. And I speak to a lot of creatives on the podcast, and, there's a lot of support needed for outside of the art.
Yes.
There's a lot of the business side of the art often gets forgotten. One of my personal heroes is Jim Henson.
Yes.
Who created the Muppets. And he was very typical of a creative that just wanted to do his work, that he needed other people. It was his wife that was behind him that tried to remind him of, you need money to drive the creativity. that it simply is the fuel that you need. Otherwise, your creativity is going to come to a full stop.
Yeah.
Without it. So it sounds to me like you're that person, you're that driver for the fuel.
I think I can be, right? And it's not just the financing, but it's also understanding how to connect with your audiences, right? How to message those audiences, how to market to them in ways that resonate with them and in ways that they can relate to, And so I think I can bring all of those skills to the industry.
What would you say, and I'm going to take this to a personal level now, then for me personally as a creative, that I could be doing different to be driving this as a business?
Yeah, the one thing I see a lot is that marketing component. I feel like people have wonderful stories and they know how to create those stories and they know how to actually tell those stories. But I feel like there is this gap with, now, how do I connect to my audience in different ways? And whether that is social media, whether it's, social media is probably the easiest way to do it today. But how do you connect to the audience that would be inspired or enjoy or whatever it is about your story? How do you connect to them in ways that they can hear you? And I feel like that there is a bit of a gap there.
Yes, and that hearing you bit is so important with whatever we're doing creatively. I love that, in fact, because even if you're an artist painting a picture, there's something that needs to be told to the audience.
Yes.
And if we just lay out the artwork on the table, it doesn't necessarily mean anything.
Right. And honestly, it's the same way in a business setting, right? I mean, when I've done all of these talks about how people can advance their careers and things like that. And, very often, many people in business think, in whatever business you're in, think that I'll just kind of do my work and I'll keep my head down and somebody will recognize it.
Yes.
That's not the way it works. You have to be able to tell your story. Yes. You have to be able to tell what value you bring, whether it's in a business setting or whether it's a film or a piece of art or a novel that you've created, right? I mean, when I think about, even I think about writers, right? I remember, and I can't remember exactly what book it was, but there was this moment that I started seeing novels advertised on TV, and I had never seen that before. And I was like, oh, that's genius, right? And all of a sudden, that novel just became this bestseller like overnight. And I'm like, because they actually marketed it to people in a way that people could see what it was, understand it, and get excited about the book. Whereas before, you just sort of went to a bookstore and you browsed around and maybe it caught your attention, maybe it didn't. But now that whole model of how they're marketing, how authors are marketing their books and publishers are marketing their books, it's totally changed now. They figured it out.
Yeah, this is blowing my mind in this conversation because I'm at episode 500. 2.5 years I've been doing this, and I've been thinking that mindset of I'm just going to do the work.
Yeah.
And it will find, my audience will find me. And it's happening,
yes,
to a degree, but it's slow.
But you want it to be faster,
it
right?
It has to be faster in order for me to be able to continue doing this.
Yeah.
And I want to have a life outside of this as well. And so I'm at this point with doing this, with meeting all these wonderful people and hearing all these amazing stories. that if the audience doesn't find it, I can't continue to do the work.
Right.
I can't continue to share. So this is blowing my mind. I needed to hear those words. I needed to hear that it's time for the audience to come now.
Yes.
It's time for me to concentrate on the marketing rather than the work.
That's great.
Mm.
I'm glad I could be helpful.
Like I say, it blows my mind how helpful it is at this exact moment. So I want to go bring this back to film then, the marketing that we do within film. How do we retell a story that we've worked so hard on? You know, like your documentary, you've packaged this story perfectly to be delivered, but now you've got to kind of put that in some kind of micro story. Where do you begin there?
So I think that, and we're not quite there yet, right?
Mm-hmm.
We're still in the development stages of the documentary, but now we've got, I think, a very clear idea coming out of Cannes of how to move forward pretty rapidly with it. Mm-hmm. And then I think it's, for me, I'm thinking that it's the marketing to the people they can also help to get the message out. So whether it's I'm going to say social media influencers, right? There are many people that are focused on justice and equality and diversity and inclusion, and so maybe getting the story out to them and having them talk about it a little bit. I think that there also could be press around it, right? So how do you get into, have a PR agent that can get articles and things like that about this movie that we think is so important to really engage and activate the generations that are coming up. So those are the kinds of things that I'm thinking about.
Yeah, and that's on an industry level, trying to get that out. I'm thinking also about the audience when it is out there in the world. Yes. I'm wondering if it has anything to do with that. Those micro stories is more about the feeling that people are going to get from this, how it's going to change things for them.
I hope that it will. Mm-hmm. I really do. So, of course, we want people to be inspired, and not only just to activate them, but we want them to understand the power that they individually have. Mm-hmm. And so I'm not sure if I'm answering. I'm not sure if I'm hearing the question the right way, but that's kind of what we want people to walk away from. Of course, we want them to feel like, as an individual, I have power that can actually help to change the world. Mm-hmm. And that's what we want them to walk away with.
Amazing. I do want to go back a little bit, actually,
Sure.
with you. I want to go back before this, and I want to go back and find out about that power and where that came from. And I'm assuming your mother had a lot to do with it. But was there a time in your life where you really felt inspired yourself to be such a powerful businesswoman that you felt like, yes, this is what I can do?
Yeah, so, I think it's a bit of just who I've always been. Mm-hmm. Because, yes, even growing up, I was the captain of this and the president of this and the leader of this in high school and in college and university. And so I think there are some innate traits that I have that have just sort of shown themselves throughout my life and my career. But, even when I was first starting out in my career, I understood very rapidly, because I worked for a company that really tried to make a difference with patients, right? So it wasn't a company that developed generic drugs or Me Too drugs. Like, it was a company that really was trying to put products into the marketplace that could change the trajectory of healthcare for individuals in a variety of ways. And there was one moment where I was very early in my career, and I had the opportunity. We were doing some meeting, and I was put in charge of the patient stories. And I met this family, I met this family whose son was suffering from schizophrenia. And we had just released a product that would help to treat the symptoms of schizophrenia. And they looked at me and they said, Wanda, you don't understand what this product means to us. For the first time in probably about 15 years, we're able to sit down and have dinner with our son at the dinner table. And it was that, just those moments that we all just sort of take for granted that was so powerful for them. And I understood, okay, so not only is there power in the products, but there's power in the way that we can help people in different ways. And I think that always stood with me. And that story was, oh my gosh, probably 30 years ago now. And I can remember their faces. I can remember their emotion when they talked about the impact that this had not only on their son, but on their family. And that always just sort of stuck with me, that we have to find these ways that we can help people just live better lives, and whatever it is that we're doing, whether it's creating products, whether it's, creating films, whether it's writing books, whether it's drawing art, whatever it is, let's just try to find ways to be meaningful in our lives and to help others live more meaningful lives.
What a wonderful example of the power of storytelling. When someone shares their own story, their own truth, it's still resonating in you 30 years later and driving what you do now.
And that's how powerful that story was. And it was such a simple, everyday thing that we all take for granted. And I think that's why it stuck with me so much, that, it was like, oh, wow. Like, this is something we just sort of do every day. But for this family, it's life-changing. And that really stuck with me. Yeah.
So I wonder at this point for you, Wanda, what does the future look like? What do you hope that it will be for you in the next 5 years as you go deeper and deeper into the film industry?
Well, I hope the future involves a wonderful documentary called Tilly that inspires and motivates and others to get engaged and get involved, and also does justice to my mom's very, very powerful story. I hope also that I'm able to get engaged with other films that are working to kind of create just a better society in general. I hope to get engaged with films like that in different ways.
Yeah, that sounds like a pretty exciting journey ahead of you as you go there.
I hope so. I hope so.
Well, I really appreciate you sharing today. This has been a wonderful discovery. Like I say, it's been hugely impactful for me to have this conversation with you. So I truly appreciate it.
Oh, thank you. Thank you so much for having me, Martin. I appreciate it.
No problem at all. I have got one final question for you. This is a question that I ask of all of my guests, whatever it is that they do in the world. It's a human question for us all to consider. So I wonder for you, Wanda, how would you make this a better world?
Oh, well, I would make this a better world by making sure that so this is in my, in a perfect world, we would all just value each other, right? We would have a society where everyone feels like they belong, where everyone has a voice, where everyone can speak up about things that are important to them, where the world is just filled with peace and love. To me, that's the perfect world.
That looks like a nice place to go as well.
It would be a lovely place to live.
Any idea what the first step is we can take on getting there?
I think that there is a big piece. This comes from some of the work I did as a Chief Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion Officer. But there's a big piece around inclusion. When we listen to others and value their stories, that actually creates this space for people to not only share, but to feel like they are a part of something bigger than themselves and to feel like they actually belong in society. So I think it's really important that we just take moments to listen and to understand and to value the different backgrounds and perspectives and stories that people have. And I think that is a great first step to creating this utopia society that we'd all like to live in.
We've got to open up that door of inclusion.
We absolutely have to. Absolutely.
Wonderful. Well, thanks again, Wanda. I really do appreciate it.
Thank you so much, Martin. I appreciate you having me on.
Wonderful. And so if anyone wants to find out more about you and wants to connect with you, what's the best way for them to do that?
I'm on Instagram at Wanda B. Hope, and that's probably the best way. Yeah.
Great, wonderful.
Do I need to say that again?
No, that's lovely. So, well, thank you so much for sharing. And if anyone has been watching or listening to this conversation, we appreciate you for joining us.
Thank you.
Lovely. Bye-bye. That was awesome.
Excellent.